What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and whew, that was close. So, 4-3 against Watford at home. Definitely not the easy game that I think a lot of us were hoping it would be. Which I kind of figured Watford would probably come in. They have something to prove. They haven't done well in recent games. They haven't scored in the past 4 games, they said. And on top of that, apparently there's a little bit of a rivalry between Mazzari and Conte from past time spent in Italy. So kind of figured it wasn't going to be a straightforward game, but 4-3 is definitely not the result that I think a lot of us were hoping for. Well, maybe the result we were hoping for, but not the scoreline we were hoping for. But I think the biggest problem tonight, I loved the lineup for the most part. I love seeing Terry start. I talked about I wanted to see him start. I wanted to see Mitchie start. But here's the thing. Despite the fact that a lot of these players that haven't gotten a chance that I think deserve a chance, I think that's great. But changing up the back three completely, I think that really hurt us tonight. And I think they scored 3 goals because our back three was completely changed. You have an entire back three made up of players who have hardly played this season. Zuma's been getting time in the recent few games. Ake, he played at Bournemouth, but since he's come to us, he's only gotten like 1 or 2 games. Terry has played on as a sub in the last 2 games, and that's it. They're not really the 3 defenders that you want back there. Now, obviously, we want Ake to get more time. We want Zuma to get more time, and obviously, we want Terry to start these last 2 games because these are his last 2 games with us. But I think what probably could have been done instead of what happened is keep Aspilicueta in the back, move Ake out to the left wing back, and then either Kennedy at right or bring Kennedy on as a sub later, maybe start Aina at the right back or right wing back. But I think you put Aspilicueta and Zuma in there with Terry in the middle, and then Ake and either Aina or Kennedy on the right. I think that's a better lineup than completely switching out the back three, because I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the goals. All 3 of them are because this team has not played together. These people have not played in quite a while. Not a full game at least. So the first goal, right after our goal, which is unfortunate, and right after Terry scores, which is also unfortunate because Terry is the one that kind of. I'm not sure if it was completely his mistake. I think Chalba had something to do with it too. He was making the run in, not really communicating with him, and so he gets in Terry's way as Terry's trying to head it back to Begovic. Begovic isn't reading the situation, so he's still stuck on his goal line the entire time. And so, poor header, Capu's right in there, an easy goal for him. Second one, similar thing, but it's a bit more of a one-on-one situation. We're caught out. We're not really paying attention. Zuma, instead of just getting it out, tries to flick it or something and flicks it right into Janmat's path. And at that point, he was in behind our defense. The only person that was in his way was Ake, and he felt like he needed to make a challenge because he was the last person in between him and the goal. Unfortunately, poor choice because all he had to do was just force him wide, but that challenge that he puts in lets him inside, and he just has an easy tap in past Begovic for a goal. And then the last one was just balls bouncing around and shot comes up, it falls at his feet and he just gets the shot away quickly. So, all 3 of the goals are just defensive errors that if this were an experienced, or not experienced, if this were a defense made up of players that have been playing regularly or had somebody out there who had been playing regularly and knew what they were doing, had somebody out there that just kind of covered for people like Aspilicueta normally does, I just think it would have been a lot more solid back there, and we may have still let in a goal or 2, but definitely not 3. 3 is just kind of telling that there were some defensive problems tonight. But, I do understand what Conte's trying to do, and I appreciate the fact that he's not just saying, oh, I'm going to keep my team the same. First of all, resting players because they just played Friday. It makes sense. You're going to rest them. And on top of that, you want these players to show what they've got because we've got an FA Cup final coming up. We got to make decisions going into that game. So now that we've got 2 games now, that the result really, it does matter, but it doesn't when it comes to, we've already won the league. There is still the we have a chance to break our record of most wins in a season. So we are still pushing for that. But you can throw out this team, and even if we had drawn tonight or lost tonight, it still would have said, okay, well, now we know we can't really put these players out there in future games. But to be honest, it was not really that poor result considering. Because you look at the players that are out there, Azpilicueta, Conte, and Hazard are the only three that have regularly been playing this season. So the fact that we still managed to, play as well as we did against the Watford side that really showed up tonight, it really is telling that these players do have the quality. It's just they need a bit more game time under their belts, and hopefully next season with Europe, Champions League and Premier League, hopefully that will start to balance out a bit more. Because I do think if we hold on to most of these players, I think we've got a very solid team to challenge in both competitions. If we obviously we got to bring in a couple more players, but that's an entirely different video. So let's talk about individual performances. Begovic, I think it's incredibly telling that Watford only had 3 shots on target tonight, and they had 3 goals. I just think that tells the entire story right there. I don't think he can cut it at this level. I don't know, maybe it's because he doesn't play enough, but the first goal, not a whole lot he can do. It was a good header over him. He probably should have been off his line a little bit more to help Terry out, but as far as saving the header, not much he could do. The goal, the second one, the Yamak goal, probably could have cut off the angle a bit more. I mean, he was slow to come out. As soon as Ake dives in, Begovic should have already been in a position to where as soon as Ake gets beat, he's there smothering the angle. But instead, he's kind of like holding off. Ake's beat. Oh, now time to step as the pass is going right by him into the corner. And then the last one, entirely him, in my opinion. Like, I'm watching. It's a mad scramble in the middle. The ball's bouncing around. Okaka gets a shot away. And all I can think is, get down and get to it. He just falls down. It's the exact same thing that happened in the Rashford goal when we played Man U. He just fell down. He didn't move. He didn't try to go one side or the other. He just BAM! And hits the ground. And the ball rolls to the side of him and goes in the net. So I don't think he's good enough to be a backup. I really do think we need to look at either, just bringing in another keeper that maybe is at the end of his line and maybe just wants to retire at Chelsea, or just look at having a youngster on the bench. Somebody who realizes, okay, I'm not really going to play that often, but is still solid enough to not let in 3 shots on goal equals 3 goals. That's just not good enough. You have to make some saves, and in my opinion, he doesn't make enough. He doesn't really do enough to qualify being there. And on top of that, I understand Conte's trying to give time to some of these guys that have been there the entire season, that haven't really gotten to play. But your goalkeeper, I don't see why, some of these players actually have a chance of breaking into the side. Begovic does not. Courtois is too good. There's only one position there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too critical on him, but as a goalkeeper coach myself, I'm watching him and I'm just like, you've got to move your feet. You've got to move to get there. You've got to come off your line. You've got to be braver. You can't just stay there the entire time and stay still. Into the defense, Ake, solid performance. Obviously that mistake that led to the second goal is kind of worrying, and I'm not sure how he would do in one-on-one situations like that if it happened a lot. Because, in that situation, if it's Azpilicueta, most of the time Azpilicueta is either shutting it down or forcing him wide, or he's better in those situations than I think Ake is. But I just don't think Ake is used to the players running at me. I don't think he's used to that. And I don't know how often he's faced that at Bournemouth and the couple games he's played here. So, but overall, I'm watching his performance, and he just works really, really hard. Just every single time the ball is near him, he's putting pressure. He's in the way. He's trying to push the player away from him, push him away from goal. So he really does work hard, even if he is a little bit naive at times. And probably say the same thing for Zuma. Both of them are younger and they're naive at times whenever they defend. There's just this moment of, I don't know if it's a lack of concentration in that moment or if it's just a lack of knowledge of what to do in a pressure situation. But you can see there are times where it should just be, okay, get it away or find the feet. Pick up your head, see the pass, make the pass. Job's done. It's over. It's easy to do. There are times whenever it's like they kind of get rushed and they get a little frantic and it's like, oh, I got to clear it out, or oh, I got to, try to make that pass quickly, and it either ends up giving it right to another player or it's a bad pass and Watford pick it off. So I think they do need some more time to grow. I do think if they get more game time, they will grow. But the fact that they're young really does give me hope that okay, they're working hard, they're athletic, they're good in the air, and they do a really good job of holding up. If somebody's holding up the ball, they do a very good job of holding them up as well. Ake showed that whenever he faced Kane in the FA Cup. But whenever it's a one-on-one situation, I do get kind of worried because they tend to either kind of stick a foot out or they dive into the challenge. So that does need to get cut out of their game. Terry in the middle, you can see the age is there. It's something that I think has been there in the past, but he's had kind of a covering defender that's helped him out a bit. Today, with Ake and Zuma, they're not really covering defenders as much as Azpilicueta is. They're more just kind of defensive defenders. I know that sounds weird. I'm not really sure I can explain what I mean by that. But a covering defender like Azpilicueta is more of a, okay, I'm going to drop in behind whenever one of my other defenders is stepping in. I'm going to drop in behind and provide cover for him. Zuma and Ake don't do that as much, and so Terry a lot of the times was kind of stuck in the middle by himself, having to defend by himself. And while at times his experience helped him make a good clearance, there were times where his age helped him get beat. While I love the fact that he scored a goal, I do have to say it probably is time, and I think he realizes that as well. I think he's noted. Time and time again, he said, "I don't mind sitting the bench as long as we're winning games." It's how much he loves the club. So I do appreciate everything he's done, but watching him tonight, it was kind of like, yeah, it's probably time for him. But I will say, I still want him to start against Sunderland. I think you put him in there with the Azpilicueta covering for him behind. I think that would be fine. I don't see any problem with that. So onto the wing backs, Kennedy and then Azpilicueta was on the right. Seeing Azpilicueta get up in the attack kind of reminds me that he is more naturally a fullback, because there are times where he gets up very well and he gets into the right spaces, and it's because that's what he used to do. But like I said, I think he's just so much better as that covering center back that I appreciate the hard work you do going up top, but I would rather have him in the back three. I would. And honestly, most of the time whenever we're facing some of these lower sides like Sunderland or Middlesbrough the other night when we faced them, a lot of the time he ends up getting up in the attack. He's in there because they've stepped so far back. So it's almost like he can still get up as that center back, but he provides so much cover for the other two that I just don't see him as anything other than that center back now. But he did get himself a nice goal and worked really hard on both sides of the ball, so he's obviously got a lot of work ethic in him. And honestly, they were talking about it tonight. Arlo Whiteley, Dixon, and Graham Lasso were talking about it in the commentary booth. They're asking the question, is Azpilicueta going to be the next captain to sort of take over for Terry? And of course they brought up, Cahill's worn it this entire year, so I don't see why Cahill wouldn't have it. But then again, whenever Cahill was off and Terry was off, Azpilicueta was the one to take the captain's armband. And I think watching what he does, watching the work that he puts in, I do think he would probably make a decent captain. There are times whenever he gets a little frustrated that I think he needs a cooler head to sort of have that leadership position. But I think just watching the work that he puts in, I think that inspires a lot of the other players around him to work harder. So I always appreciate a hard worker on the team. Obviously, you got Conte. Onto the left side, Kennedy hasn't really played pretty much at all this season. Like, he was on loan at Watford first half of the season. He only played one game for him, so we brought him back in January. And since then, he's only played one game for us. So this is his third game of the season. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he hasn't featured for our youth team or development team because I don't remember seeing his name. So, yeah, he hasn't really been playing at all. And seeing him work tonight, I'm just like, yeah, he's doing okay for not having played this entire season. You can tell he was rusty. You can tell he was making mistakes every now and then. But for the most part, taking into the fact that he hasn't played at all this season, he had a fairly decent game tonight. And just watching him work off of Hazard, it makes me realize that even though he's not as I don't think he makes the right runs at the moment. Looking at him versus Alonso, Alonso knows where to be in the right situations. And on top of that, I think Alonso does a lot better job tracking back on defense. But you give Kennedy the time, you give Kennedy the chance to sort of prove himself there. He's got more speed than Alonso for sure, and I think he's a bit quicker to win the ball off of somebody. It kind of reminds me of Conte a little bit in the way he sort of sticks his foot in whenever they're not expecting it and pokes the ball away. Alonso's not really known for doing that. He's better at, I think he's got a bit more strength to hold off the player if they try to go past him. But I think Kennedy has a bit more speed and a bit more quickness to sort of pick the ball off of them and get it away. So, I don't know. I'm watching him play. I'm just like, if he had played more, he could be a really, really good player for us. I think we need to give him some time on the field. So, maybe Conte will look at that. Maybe he'll look at him and say, you know what? He did pretty well tonight. Let's give him another chance against Sunderland. But comparing him and Alonso, I do think Alonso's got the more experience, obviously, but I think Kennedy may be a bit better if he had a bit more experience out there. So, average game from a player who hasn't played but 3 games this season. Into the middle, it was Conte and Chalobah. Love seeing Chalobah in, and he did well. He was pulled out of position a couple times, but I don't mind that because Conte's in there. It's kind of like with Fabregas. If Fabregas ever gets pulled up the field, Conte's there for him. Happened with Chalobah tonight. He gets pulled up the field, it's okay. Conte's there. And watching him pass, he not quite as good as Fabregas, but pretty good. For somebody who I think he's 21 or 22, he's fairly young, and he can already hit a diagonal pretty good. Whenever you compare it to Fabregas is obviously better at it, but I'm watching him move the ball around, and obviously he had a couple really good passes this season. The one that comes to mind is the Leicester game earlier on in the season when we were on that 13-game winning run, and he comes into the side, and then all of a sudden pass comes in. He does a little back heel flick to Moses, who finishes it off to make it 3-0 that game. Yeah, that's the type of stuff that he likes to do. He likes to do little flicks. He likes to do nice fancy passes, but most of the time it comes off for him. And on top of that, I think what really works for him is, aside from the passing side of his game, he also has this defensive work rate that even if he doesn't make the challenge the first time, even if he dives in and misses the challenge, he works so hard to get back that he's there for the second challenge. He's there to put pressure on whoever just beat him or on the guy who just got the pass that beat him. So he works so hard to win the ball back whenever he misses the challenge or whenever he gets caught out that I don't think those little mistakes defensively really matter because he makes up for it so easily. Kind of Conte's similar, except most of the time it's like his mistakes are more like it's leading them somewhere. So if he misses a challenge, it's actually putting pressure on him and forcing them wide, which provides him an ability to step in again and win the next challenge. So I don't really want to compare because I think Conte just does what he does so well and nobody even comes close to him. But I do think that there aren't that many players out there that whenever they go into a challenge and miss out, most of them tend to turn off. I've seen it even a couple times from Matic, who's supposed to be a bit more a defensive player. But Chalobah is like, he goes in, if he misses the challenge, he's instantly turned around and he's heading back as fast as he can to put pressure on the guys. So not a lot of players are willing to do that. And so I think that's something that he can bring to us, as well as having a really good pass on him. So that was good to see. Hazard and Willian up there with Batshuayi. Hazard, something seemed a little off with him tonight. I don't know what it was. He was still very dangerous, but most of the time whenever he's dangerous, it's like it's leading to a really good chance or a goal. Tonight it felt like he was dangerous, but then all of a sudden he's not dangerous. He beats a player, but then he's getting forced wide, or it's not a great pass, or he beats the guy, but then he's pressured by 2 or 3 more, and nobody's around to help him. Maybe it was the lack of help. Maybe it was just he wasn't having the best of night as far as being under pressure, trying to beat people under pressure. But it did feel like he lost the ball a few more times tonight than he's used to, and he didn't really create as many chances as I'm used to him creating. So I don't know. It felt like he was still really involved. I made this comparison before. You look at Mesut Ozil. Whenever he's having a bad night, he's not involved at all. With Hazard, even when he's having a bad night, he still creates a few chances that you're like, yeah, Hazard was in the game. Tonight it was the same thing. You could tell he was in the game. He was there. He was providing. He was beating defenders. But that finishing quality that he usually has that creates a great chance or scores him a goal every now and then, that wasn't there tonight. And it kind of cost us at times. We could have been 3-0 up in the first half if Hazard had finished a couple of the chances that he had, but he didn't. And so all of a sudden, oh yeah, we finally got the Terry goal, but then they equalized instantly. And all I'm thinking is it could have been 3-0 by the time Terry scored. So, but it's something that I don't know if it's just a fluke game, but at the same time he didn't really do a whole lot against West Brom either. So it's a couple games in a row that he hasn't been as involved as he has been all season. I don't take this as like this is a sign he's going back to last year, Hazard. But I think it is something that hopefully he looks at and says, okay, I haven't had the best couple of games, time to step back up and really put him to the sword. Willian, I'm really surprised that he hasn't been playing all season. And I say that not because Pedro's been doing poorly and I think Willian should play over him or anything like that. At times I do think that. But what I'm saying is, it's hard for me to look at Willian and think he's only come on as a sub for most of this season. Because I'm watching him go the full 90 minutes. At the end of the 90 minutes, he's still going. He's still just as hard as he can. He's still working. He's still beating players with speed. He's taking on players. He sets up Fabregas's winning goal. Just all over the place. And I think I said this last season whenever everybody else was not doing well. Willian was the only one that was really stepping out and saying, I'm going to take this on my own and do as much as I can. It really surprised me at times whenever it was late on. It's like the 85th minute. Willian's been going all game, and I'm just like, oh, somebody give him help. He's all by himself. He's got nothing left. He's been working all game, and all of a sudden, boom, and he's past the defender, and he's just gone. He has the ability to just do that out of nowhere when he's been doing it all game, and it's ridiculous. I can't explain it, but he can just turn on the pace, even when he looks dead tired, even when he looks like, okay, he's been doing this for a full 90 minutes, guys. He can't do it again, and then he does it again. I love watching Willian play, and I really do hate the fact that he's not been playing over Pedro at times, just because I think he provides a bit more for the team as a whole rather than Pedro. Pedro obviously can pop up with a goal every now and then that makes him look good, but I think Willian just, his hard work, whenever somebody plays him a ball, his hard work to make that ball, no matter where it is on the field. It could be a terrible ball that's going out of bounds. Willian's going to do as much as he can to make sure that ball stays in. And most of the time, he does. So I think he just works so hard for the team rather than just, okay, I've got the ball, I'm going to go try score. And that's a bit more Pedro's game. And, not saying anything bad against Pedro. Obviously, he does what he does very well. He works very hard to win the ball back. But there are times when he does get very selfish, and it hurts us. Later on in the game, I can't remember when this was. I think it was whenever we were tied 3-3, and there's a moment where Pedro's away and Hazard's on the other side of the box, and they had shown earlier, the Arsenal game where they beat us 3-0, and they had shown they were trying to show why the change from the 4-4 or 4-3-2-1 or whatever, how that change worked, and so they showed the goal where Sanchez was on one side, Ozil was on the other, and it was like the two defenders were just kind of in a mix. They didn't know where to go, and so it was just an easy chip over. Ozil's on the back post for an easy goal. I'm watching the setup to this goal. It's the exact same thing. Pedro's going off this way. The two defenders are kind of in a mix-up. Who stays, who goes. Hazard's on the far side. I'm like, dude, just find him far post. And then he goes for the chip over Gomez, and I'm just like, see, that's the problem that I have with Pedro. Too many of those moments where it should be a goal, but then it's not because it's Pedro. So I know I just kind of switched over to Pedro, but it kind of ties into Willian. That's just I wouldn't imagine Willian to do that. If he was gonna take a shot, it would be down low, it would be hard. He would be getting a corner out of it at least. But I would expect Willian to try to find Hazard back post because that's the type of player he is. So I know I kind of went off on a little tangent comparing Willian and Pedro, but they've been taking each other's spots all year, so that kind of makes sense. The last one to talk about as far as the starting lineup goes is Batshuayi. First start for the year for him, got himself a goal. On the whole, not a bad performance, but I still think he has a lot of growing room. Just watching him have to go one-on-one with these really tough defenders, and on top of that, a referee in Lee Mason who just absolutely sucked. And so watching him have to just come under constant pressure, he got kicked, he got pulled, he got pretty much everything happened to him tonight, and Mason was only calling like half of those, like he would call a couple. Obviously, he gave Protl a yellow for that last challenge before Batshuayi had to come off the field. But for the most part, I mean, Protl was going in hard and only getting a foul called on him every now and then when he probably should have gotten more. And honestly, as soon as he went in for that sliding challenge, I'm like, he's on a yellow, right? Oh no, wait, you haven't called half of his fouls. But sorry, referee, stupid. Off to the side. But watching him have to be under that constant pressure, it kind of does show that he's not used to that yet. However, he did get used to it as the game went on. And they even showed in the first half, they showed those moments where he wasn't really ready for it. He wasn't on his toes. He wasn't making the right run. And so Protl was beating him to it over and over and over again. Second half came out, and all of a sudden, he's a lot more involved. He's making the right runs. He's getting there ahead of Protl. He's flicking things on. He's actually doing something the second half. He still didn't really provide us the help that I think Costa does as far as holding the ball up. But when it came to our attack, when it came to, okay, we're breaking out, we're countering, a lot of the times he helped there. But I think whenever you think of a lone striker up there, you think of a striker who's able to, okay, ball's in the air, chest it down, defender's on my back, but I'm going to hold it up for a second to allow my team a chance to get out. Batshuayi doesn't do that very well, and he can grow, he can get better at that, but right now he's not good at it. And so when Watford were pressing, they had just gotten the third goal, that was the time where we needed our striker to say, okay, I'm going to take the pressure off our defense, ball comes out of the air, I'm going to hold on to it, and he didn't do that. All of a sudden it's a bad touch, or it's a touch and Protl's stepping in and getting past him and poking it away, and now all of a sudden they're back at us again. So those are the moments I think he needs to work on a bit more, but his movement did get a lot better, and I think his work ethic is really good. And I talked about that in the West Brom game. He works very hard to win the ball back, especially whenever it's a pass to him and he loses out on it. He's instantly on the defender. Either they're kicking it out of bounds or he's about to poke it off of him. So I appreciate the hard work that he does, but he does need to grow a little bit if he wants to take over for Costa. That being said, not sure if Costa's going to be here next year because people keep talking about it, and now he doesn't play at all today. You got to ask the question, is he going to be there next year? I really hope so, and I think he certainly looks like he wants to stay at the moment, but you never know. Sanchez last week for Arsenal was tapping his badge and saying this, and we all know he's leaving because they're not going to be in the Champions League next year. But anyway, I digress. On to the subs. First one to come on was Aina for Kennedy. Not a bad switch, just because I think Aina is another player that's been around the club. I honestly, at one point I thought he had gotten loaned out, but he's still here. But he is a bit more defensive than Kennedy, and I think at that point we needed a bit more defensive stability because they were constantly coming at us. That being said, he didn't really provide a whole lot for us. He was there at times, but it felt like whenever we needed an outlet, he wasn't really that outlet. Defensively, he did okay, but whenever you're a wing back, you've got to do both sides of it. You can't just be, I'm good at defense. You also have to be a bit, you have to do something going forward. You have to have a good pass. You have to be able to move quickly. He's not that player. So that side of his game needs some improvement, but his work was good. So I think overall you could say the youngsters that played today, I think all of their youngsters were really hardworking today, and so that's something that I have no doubt Conte will look at that and say, that's great, I want more of that, because that's the type of coach he is. Second player to come on was Fabregas for Chalobah. just provided a bit more stability in the midfield, because I talked about this before as well. Whenever he's in the midfield and he gets on the ball, we keep possession because he keeps possession. He finds the simple pass. If the ball comes to him and there's a lot of pressure, he quickly gets it out away from pressure, so now we have a chance to breathe. And so it did provide, whenever they're coming at us, if we win the ball and Fabregas gets on it, he's either looking for that killer-through ball or he's looking to calm things down and let us get back into possession. So after he came on, things did change for our favor, and that's when we started providing a lot more up front. And obviously getting himself the winning goal just sort of cements the fact that he deserves to be out there. As much as people love Matic, and honestly, as much as I do love Matic, even if I am a bit harsh on him, he's a fine player, but Fabregas just does so much more when it comes to controlling the midfield and providing something going forward as well. I think he's earned it. I really do think he's earned a spot over Matic. So, take from that what you will. Last one to come on was Pedro for Batshuayi, and like I said, kind of selfish at times, but still works hard. I have such a love-hate relationship with him. At times I love him because he scores the winning goal, but then at times I hate him because he passes up a chance to assist the winning goal because he tries to score it and fails horribly. But all in all, obviously I talked about this game a lot, and a lot of you might be thinking, why? This game doesn't matter. Mainly because, one, I wanted to look at Conte's decisions now that the league is officially won. I wanted to see what he was going to do, and seeing that was interesting. But on top of that, we do have the FA Cup final coming up, and that is going to be a game that we need to win. First of all, it's Arsenal. We have to beat Arsenal. And second of all, if we lose, that's bragging rights for Arsenal. We don't want to give them bragging rights. We want to say, no, you're not winning anything this year, and you're going to be in the Europa League. Suck on that, Arsenal. That being said, I wouldn't mind seeing Pep and Mourinho both make Europa League next year, but I digress. It kind of hit me. Liverpool will likely be... No, never mind. Man City's probably going to top them. Liverpool could drop into Europa League next year. After all this hard work, they could drop into Europa League if Man U ends up beating Ajax. Once again, that's a different video. But obviously, I do still want to review it, look at it technically, look at it analytically, and say, okay, so these players are doing well, these players are not. These tactics worked well, these tactics did not. So, we do have one more game in the league, and then the FA Cup final. Probably going to see a lot more changes in the next game too. I don't think he'll probably put in the starting 11 that we normally see. There'll probably be a little mix. Maybe Ake will play, maybe Zuma will play. Terry probably will start again. Depending on whether or not these rumors about Costa wanting to leave are true, either Batshuayi or Costa will start. Not sure which one. And depending on what Conte thought of Willian today, I think he looked really, really good. He may end up getting the starting spot over Pedro. So, it's probably going to be a lot more changes again. It's another game that, while the smashing the record does matter, the result ultimately doesn't matter. What matters is giving some of these players time that haven't had time. And on top of that, trying to look and see, okay, what other options might we have for the FA Cup. So, some of them worked, some of them didn't as much as I think we wanted them to. But overall, still a good overall team performance, and just still a win. So there is that. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Who's your man of the match? What were your thoughts on the game today? Let me know. We can talk about it, discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews. I'll see you at the next game. Peace out.